Hello. It's early. So pretend there's music here because we still don't have any.
That's okay. We're working on it. We will get there. But in the meantime, my name is Jess,
My name is Hannah.
and this is episode 4 of the Badly
Woo.
Annotated Reader Society. And today we are going over the angst, the chaos, and the tropes that causes all of that to ensue.
Yes.
Hannah reads a lot of genres that really play into certain tropes. And
Yup.
so today she's going to teach me about all of them. I briefly glimpsed her list and was a little afraid, so I exited out of that right away because I was like, whoa, that's a lot. I just read murder. But here we are. So I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Yay.
I'm really excited. You can't tell because it's early in the morning for me, but I'm excited.
See, I've gotten caffeine in, so I'm bringing the hype. Woo!
Yeah. Woo. That's great because I'm not. So I wanted to start off because I sat down to record just now and my friend Amine just texted me pictures of her book that she's reading with her very first annotations in it because she was
Oh,
inspired by you
oh,
and your annotation method of highlighting the edges.
oh,
So she just sent me this
oh
with
my
her edges
God.
highlighted. Yeah,
Wow.
and then like her highlights.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she's actually writing in her
Wow.
books,
That's like the
which is
hardest first
crazy.
step. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
So she just
exciting.
full sent it.
I love that for her.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Nothing makes me happier than when people either say that I inspired them to start reading again or I inspired them to try annotating
Yeah.
because it's such a big part of my life that it makes my chest flutter. It brings me so much joy because it's like, oh my God, this thing that I love and now they're starting to love it too. Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Yay.
That's like my favorite thing in the whole world is like collecting things from other people and things that they love and things that they
Oh,
enjoy.
yeah. You're like a little charm bracelet.
Yeah, I'm really just made up of all the people I've ever loved
Oh,
because I collect hobbies that aren't mine.
yeah. Hannah texted me a couple of days ago going, my plan for the evening is crochet and Stardew Valley. And I just went, did I just read a text from myself? Because those are like 2/3 of my hobbies.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I'm very happy that she's enjoying annotation. Oh,
Yeah, it's so cute. I love it. I'm
yay.
gonna text her back once we're done recording. But yeah,
Adorable.
I just wanted to share that with you because I
Oh,
thought you would appreciate that. And yeah, you have fans, Jess.
oh, that's hard to perceive. I've not yet realized that people really do perceive me when I'm not right directly in front of them. And I know that's like an object permanence thing, and that's just something I struggle with in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, knowing that people like know of me, it's like, oh, okay.
There's so many. Yeah, I talk about you constantly.
Yikes.
Yeah. I think also it's just the fact that you have some novelty for all the people over
Oh
here
yeah.
in my life because you live in another city. So like I'm the only one who's met
I'm a
you.
cryptid.
Yeah, you are basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got quite the following.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, how you doing? Really quick before we get started.
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying my coffee. I get to start my day chatting with you about books, and that's like
Oh.
one of the best things going on right now. So, yeah, how are you?
I am pretty good. I'm gonna be real. Today's an anxiety day, but that's okay. We're being kind to ourselves. We're drinking our water. I always tell other people, drink your water and have a good day on purpose.
There we
So
go. Take your own advice.
that's what
I love
that's what
that.
we're trying to do. So I am drinking my water, and I will make it a good day on purpose.
Yeah, we're starting today on a good note.
Yeah, with the pod.
Yay.
So I'm feeling pretty good. Just a bit tired, but that's okay.
Working through it.
Yeah, and I get to talk about something that I enjoy. So
there we go.
That'll wake me up.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So okay. First of all, I made this list in no particular order. It was just sort of like, as I thought of things, I just threw them on the list. So these are like primarily romance tropes and like romantasy, some fantasy tropes. I think I did have a couple sci-fi ones in there, but the only genres that are really tropey are fantasy romance.
Yeah.
Things with romance in
That's
them.
definitely something that I've noticed since we started planning this episode. Because I've been reading like my thrillers and my sci-fis and going like, are there tropes in this? Of course there are like minor sci-fi tropes, but it's usually like old scientist with like young sidekick. Like it's romantasy definitely has a broader spectrum of tropes. So I'm very excited to hear about them all because that's not something I'm generally exposed to.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain them to you, and these are also like this is not a comprehensive list by any means. These are just my favorites, so you're about to learn a lot about me. So yeah, so we'll just dive right into it. The first one I wrote down obviously was the "who did this to you" trope. So are you familiar? It's basically like at some point, it's usually between like a male and a female main character, and usually at some point something has happened to her that she's faced on her own, like a badass, that he finds out about later and is like outraged that she's been hurt.
There was this trope in a book that I read recently.
Yeah. That's the "who did this to you" trope.
It was like a subplot in a sci-fi, but whoa.
Yeah. So yeah, that's "who did this to you," and that's personally one of my favorites because it allows for that sort of like protective energy that a lot of people find comforting in romance and fantasy, but without compromising the independence of the female main character.
Hell yeah.
So I like it a lot because it's like after the fact that he's like that, whereas she's already faced the thing and handled the thing on her own. So I'm a big fan of that one. My next one I had was the one bed trope. Usually this is in fantasy where it's usually in fantasy, it usually has to do with like enemies to lovers when they're on whatever quest they're on because they've been thrown together because of circumstances, even though they hate each other, and they're on this quest, and at some point they get to an inn and they are given a room. The room only has one bed.
See, I find that hilarious because in my mind, I would just sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, nope, one bed, fine, take it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like an enemies to lovers thing. I'm like, I don't even want to be in the same room as you. I'm sure as hell not getting in a bed. But you know what? It's romantasy. They do it anyway for the plot. But I feel like that trope has such an easy fix to it.
Yeah.
And it's just someone sleeps on the floor.
Yeah, but that's the gimmick of it. That's the gimmick of it is that like they usually by that point in the story they hate each other. Like quote unquote. But they don't actually, and so the one bed is what breaks that ice usually.
No. There's only one bed. Whatever will we do?
Yeah, because like that's the thing is they're both using it as an excuse because they don't want to admit to themselves yet that they don't hate each other anymore. So it's right
before they turn from enemies to lovers.
Yes, it's what breaks the ice usually.
See, I hold a grudge. I would still sleep on the floor.
You would never have an enemies to lovers arc. You would just stay enemies.
Yeah, I just feel like, no, once you're one way in my brain, you're usually that way. Period.
All right, cool. I like that one just because it's just fun. It's fun. It's so unrealistic, and sometimes you just need that in life.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Yeah. It sometimes happens just in like regular romance. But I have not encountered a book that does it. I've only ever seen it in movies before.
Oh, I've definitely seen it in movies.
Yeah.
I forgot that tropes that we talk about here can also be in movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my brain, everything is in little boxes, and when I realize that one thing can be in more than one box, it's like a little bit world bending, but
Yeah, so speaking of one bed, my next one is enemies to lovers, which is in itself a trope. I, personally, huge fan. Huge fan. Friends to lovers, boring. I don't care. You've always liked each other. There's no tension. There's no angst.
exactly. It was a natural progression.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't care about that. That's too realistic for me. And I did put in the list enemies to lovers, but in brackets I put not weak little office rivals to lovers. No, I want straight up knives to the throat, gonna kill each other, against each other in every way until suddenly they're fucking. Enemies to lovers. Bonus points if he hates her because he can't resist her even though he desperately wants to.
Ugh. Okay.
Yeah. Like when I say enemies to lovers, I'm not talking about like
You're talking like cutthroat.
yes, I'm not talking about contemporary enemies to lovers like they like had a spat at some point and so they're enemies. Like no, I'm talking about fantasy. Literally, she's the assassin, he's the guard sent to kill her type of enemies. So there's those circumstantial ones, or there's ones where it's like they're against each other because of literally like a war between their people or something like that.
A little bit Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, but they also hate each other.
Does Romeo and Juliet count as an... No, because that's like forbidden love.
Yeah, that's forbidden love because they never hate each other.
Yeah, because they just weren't allowed. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm there.
that's
I'm
forbidden
with you.
love.
Cool.
Yeah.
Look at me recognizing. Oh my goodness. This is this is straight up a learning experience, and I'm just like trying to think of like where the heck have I seen that before?
You've probably seen most of them at least once.
I know. I'm just
movies,
like
I guess
I'm really bad at recognizing patterns in a sense. So like tying it, that's the fun part here.
Yeah, enemies to lovers. I'm like trying to think of one off the top of my head to give you an example. There are so many. The Cruel Prince is one of them. That's the one that I just read because that's why I added if he hates her because he can't resist her even though he desperately wants to, because that's that type of situation. So I'm just all around enemies to lovers is usually, it catches my interest a bit more. So there's that. I personally, yeah, like you said, never in real life. The next one I have is puzzles and riddles.
Oh, do tell.
Which is not to be confused with games and trials. Games and trials is a separate quote.
Okay.
Quote? What trope? Games and trials is a separate trope. Puzzles and riddles is more intellectually centered.
Okay.
Than games and trials. Games and trials is usually like there's some kind of death trials that they have to fight their way through. Like that's games and trials.
Oh, so like Triwizard Tournament.
Yeah, kinda.
Okay.
Like The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. That's like games and trials where like you have to make it through all of these trials and literally survive them.
Yeah.
In order to make it out alive. That's games and trials.
There's one of those in Tenders the Flesh when part of it is people that have gone into debt, they can opt to partake in a hunting party and be hunted because in that book they're eating humans. And so if they survive the entire hunting party, their debt gets paid off by the millionaire that's hosting the party.
Yeah, so that's like games and trials kind of a thing.
Cool. Now what's riddles and puzzles?
Yeah, riddles and puzzles is more intellectually centered. The best example I can think of is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, where this young girl inherits the fortune of this like famous billionaire, even though she's never met him before in her life. He just dies and leaves her everything, basically.
Which that would happen to me.
And she is like down in her luck, living in her car. She's an orphan, basically. And she all of a sudden is contacted being like, hey, you've just been left all this money. You need to come and like see the lawyers and we need to get you set up and everything because there are terms to this and all of that. So she gets to this mansion and one of the conditions is she has to live there for a year in order to receive the money.
Oh,
with
no.
his grandsons.
Oh, weird.
with his family, who's
Doesn't know her.
yeah,
Did his family get any of the money?
barely.
Ooh, yikes!
Yeah.
What a dynamic.
They are pissed. It's very Knives Out. And she gets to this mansion and finds that the guy who died has left her a whole bunch of riddles and puzzles all around the mansion for her to solve, to figure out like why she's there and why he chose her and all of this stuff. It's really cool. So that's riddles and puzzles.
Cool.
I'm
I
a big
feel
fan
like
of that.
I've probably read something in that trope before. Like, it seems like one that can go across genres.
Yeah, for sure. I really liked it in that context when I read it. I like it because it feels a bit more immersive to me, because I can myself read the riddles and see if I can figure it out. Whereas like Games and Trials, it's just like, okay, yeah, she's good with a sword.
Would a murder mystery go into puzzles and riddles?
Not unless there was literally a puzzle and a riddle involved.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so like a murder mystery on its own, probably not, but
In the correct circumstances.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like if it's
Cool.
like if it's like a serial killer who's like leaving a bunch of riddles to like find
So,
him, like
Saw.
Moriarty kind of a situation, or Saw, yeah. Then that's like puzzles and riddles.
Gotcha. Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun one. The next one I have is controversial. A lot of people hate this trope. I'm a
Okay.
big fan of she loses her powers in the end. Now, it's a fantasy trope.
Okay.
Usually it has to do with like a badass FMC, female main character, who is like super powerful, has some kind of magic, is like gonna save the realm because she has all this power.
Okay.
And the trope is that once she gets right up to the final battle, she loses her magic for some reason.
So
She loses her powers.
at the end of Tangled, when Flynn cuts her hair.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Except usually in fantasy, it happens before the final battle. So like everything is looking terrible. They're all like, they're basically doomed anyways. And
Right.
now also she's lost all of her power, and she was their like not smoking gun. She was their secret weapon kind
She
of a
was
thing.
the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes, she was, except she loses her powers in the end. And I personally love that. Everyone hates it because they feel like, a lot of people have said that they feel like that's unfair to do that to her.
See, I love how it creates the desperation, though, and like the feeling
Yeah.
in the reader of like, what are they going to do to go about this now? Like, there was
Yes.
no plan B. What are they doing?
Exactly. And I love it because then you get to watch her.
Realize that she didn't need it. She's still
Yeah.
a strong bitch.
You watch her go through these like final adversities and like face all of these things head on, because at this point she's committed. You can't not do it.
Yep.
And you watch her survive against all odds, and you get to see that like she herself is strong on her own and capable on her own without relying on magic.
Feminism.
Yeah, some would argue that it's not feminism because they take her power from her, and that's like, a lot of people
Well,
do that to women.
I see the controversy in it then, but like,
Yeah, there's definitely some controversy around it. I like it because I personally like to see just a regular normal person
hell yeah, me too.
win of their own metal, not
Yeah.
because they have some kind of power that they don't have any control over having.
Yeah.
So I love that one personally. I find it really inspiring. I wrote controversial, I know, but I like watching the characters succeed on their own merit even after losing their power. There's something powerful in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's power in the lack of power
Agreed.
in that context.
That's
in
a
that
really
context.
good way to word it.
Yeah, only in that context.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is similar to the Who Did This to You, which is touch her and die.
Oh,
This is a really common fantasy. Sometimes it's in enemies to lovers, or it's in dark romance.
oh, I can see that.
I don't know how familiar you are with
Not
dark
very,
romance.
as in I've never read one. Just what you've told me.
So, dark romance, usually the male main character is psychopathic. And usually he's some kind of either a criminal like a mafia boss or a serial killer or a stalker or a kidnapper.
Some kind of deranged.
Yeah, basically. And so in the context of dark romance, the touch her and die trope is literal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I read a book where some guy put his hands on her in a club, and the next day she woke up and the guy had, her stalker, the male main character, had gone and murdered the guy, chopped off his hands, and mailed them to her as proof that she was safe.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You say I read weird shit.
Listen, I've just been hiding it this far.
All comes out now.
Yeah, with the tropes. I told you, you're about to learn a lot about me. So that's dark romance. Touch her and die is very common in dark romance.
I feel like once I start reading it, that's what I'm going to be going towards. Like, I just have a hunch.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, you know I love some gruesome stuff in stories. So
yeah, I know.
I feel like that's what's going to get me into the romance realm.
Yeah. Yeah. The dark romance girlies seem to really like Touch Her and Die. I do as well. Usually, actually, I like it in dark romance too. I haven't read a lot of dark romance, but I've read enough to know. And I like it in fantasy as well. Because, I don't know, sometimes I'm reading these fictional men and the feminism leaves my body. I don't know. Sometimes I'm really out here like simping over men that don't exist. So yeah, that's that one. The next one I like is the grumpy ex-sunshine romance trope.
Oh, classic.
Or like the black cat golden retriever energy dynamic. I really like it. There's grumpy sunshine or there's reverse grumpy sunshine, which is where she's the grumpy one and he's the golden retriever. Mm-hmm. I like it either way. It doesn't really matter. I just really appreciate that dynamic.
It's a classic.
Yeah, and it's just so sweet to see. I really am suspicious of it when it happens in fantasy, because usually in fantasy there's grumpy sunshine, but grumpy dies and sunshine is never the same again.
Ooh.
That happens in fantasy a lot when there's a grumpy sunshine, and so I'm suspicious. When it happens in fantasy, I'm suspicious. Like, I know he's about to die. Or she, or whoever's the grumpy one. So that is a lot for me. But in, like, regular contemporary romance, I do love a grumpy sunshine. Just because it's, you know, it's fun. On the next one on the list, I just put he falls harder in brackets, we love a simp. Because there's, like, she falls first, but he falls harder trope. Okay. I personally like it when he falls first and harder.
Word.
Like when he, you know, pursues her, when he like chases after her, when he really has to work for it. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I appreciate that. What that says about me psychologically,
who's to say?
Yeah, so I like that one a lot. The next one, major favorite of mine, Found Family.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
You know, I've been reading a lot of books recently that I feel like do go into that, such as The Secrets of Us by Lucinda Berry, because that is foster sisters and sticking together. And
nice.
Yeah, and it's like they were both put through the system, but then they came together and like they were inseparable.
Nice.
So
cool.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like Found Family. There's something therapeutic about it, especially for anyone who has, like, in their own lives some kind of a turbulent family situation. I also like the idea that blood isn't necessarily all that matters, and you can choose who your family is and who you want close to you. It's also just, like, really heartwarming to see people coming together in that way, to, like, learn to, like, go from strangers to loving each other and being ready to die for each other and being, like, a family. Usually I read it in fantasy or dystopian. Like The Marrow Thieves, like I talked about before, is a found family. It's a beautiful found family. And then in fantasy, it's usually like a whole bunch of people who find each other along the way on a quest of some kind, and then they all decide to band together, and then you end up with your, like, merry band of misfits, like, going through the woods, trying to take down this, like, evil overlord.
Okay, Robin Hood.
Yeah, except it's usually a lot more serious than that.
Totally.
But yeah, so I just love a good found family. Sort of related to that is another one I like, Fated Mates. usually this has to do with the Fae.
Okay.
It also has to do with like werewolves in the Omegaverse, but I personally am not sold on werewolves. It's a little bit too animalistic for me. But Fae are not human, but they like look human and have powers. They just have pointy ears. They're like elves basically. But the Fae, it's more of like an umbrella term. But usually the Fae, the elven coded ones, have like fated mates where they meet someone and like they just know. I don't know. I just like that. There's something comforting about that.
Heck yeah. For a moment there, I thought you said faded, as in just like intoxicated.
No.
And then I
fated.
realized that it was with a T, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm caught up. But yeah, at first I thought it was just like two fairies getting stoned together.
They do that sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah. That's all I really had to say about it.
Cool.
Fated mates. Big fan. Next one is a school or academy setting.
Okay.
Like dark academia especially. Huge fan. But I love this. I love a school setting.
As you would.
Yeah. Or like a like boarding school situation, or like
How many beds are at the boarding school? Just one.
girl, so many. I've seen a couple of posts where people have been like common tropes, but they're reversed, and so they make a list, and one of them is like too many beds. Lovers to enemies. like
You go in
tropes.
that one. I'm going all the way the fuck over there.
Yeah. I just think it's funny. Reverse tropes.
Reverse. Yeah, that's a good one.
Too many beds and lovers to enemies. Okay, and then semi-related to the school academy setting, academic rivals to lovers. Because I'm one of those people where I find intelligence very attractive. So I just think about it in the context of like, if I have this academic rival who like matches me and like also pushes me with the competition, I'm sorry, that's so hot.
See, my first thought was
it
like Rory Gilmore and Paris Geller platonically are that.
Oh. Yeah, they're like the platonic version of academic rivals to friends, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do love a good academic rivals to lovers because just the tension.
Yeah, it's extreme.
Big fan. The next one is a morally gray love interest. Like falling in love with the villain kind of a situation. I generally find the villains with a backstory and a genuine reason.
Oh, yeah.
I find them more compelling than heroes more often than not.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the subversion of that. And I love these morally gray, sort of dark, deeply sad and traumatized villains who learn to love.
Totally. See,
I don't know what it is about that.
I think that's why I loved Vicious by V.E. Schwab so much. Because the protagonist is he's very morally gray. He went to prison, and his rival is his best friend from college, and essentially like they figured out how to gain these powers, and it's by having a very near death experience, actually dying and then coming back. And however they died, or what they were thinking when they died, contributes to what their power ends up being. And so the friend from college, once he gains his power, believes that it's his God-given right. He's like, oh, my power doesn't hurt other people, and so it's good. But other people's powers can hurt things, and so their powers are bad. But mine was given to me by God. And so the protagonist, Victor, he goes, that's messed up.
Ooh.
Careful. That's not good.
Yeah.
Because he was using his quote unquote God-given abilities to like take out other people with powers. And he's going, these people did not choose to have powers. Like, you don't get to kill them because you have self-regeneration when other people can make fire. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
You're weird too.
Yeah.
You're not special.
You're not special, babe. Sit down.
Yeah. Seriously. So he's like very morally gray because like his power involves pain and like giving people pain or taking away their pain. So it's a very morally gray book in general. But yeah, all of the characters are sort of like that, which I found really intriguing.
Yeah, so I enjoy that in like a romance context when like someone who's sort of gone down that path and is kind of morally gray.
Yeah, this one was very much more found family.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this audio going around from, I think it's from an audiobook. A lot of people have been using it on like TikTok and Reels and stuff, where there's this man saying, like, he's supposedly a villain saying something like, I would burn this world for you. Like that style of morally gray, where they learn to love, but they still kind of miss the mark on being.
They're a little
being
confused,
good.
but they got the spirit.
Yeah, they have the spirit, but they, they're still morally gray. But I don't know. I find that interesting to read anyways. My next one that I have is the sparring scene. Usually this is involved in the training sequence in a fantasy where like this young woman is going on this quest and so she has to learn to fight and all this kind of thing. Usually it's the scene where anyone who reads fantasy is going to know what I'm talking about. She shows up for her training sequence and finds that whoever is training her is just hot. And so they have like some flirty banter while they're sparring.
As one does.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's like a tavern scene. Like when I'm reading a fantasy and I just come up on a good, solid tavern scene, I'm like, yes, this is what I needed in my life right now. And the sparring scene is one of those for me. I come up on that and I'm like, the banter, it's classic. I'm here for it. Having a good time. So I appreciate that one, especially if it's like an enemies to lovers situation. So
yeah, that's a good one.
Next one in all caps, I put forced proximity.
Oh, stuck in an elevator or what?
Yeah, I did read a book like that once. They were stuck in an elevator. Or sometimes it's like in the Inheritance games where she has to go and live in this mansion with this guy's grandsons who are all around her age. That's like forced proximity because she has to live there. She can't leave in order to get the fortune. So I just appreciate that because I enjoy just like throwing people together and seeing what happens. They're either going to hate each other or they're going to fall in love. Who's to say? I find that interesting. I love a good prophecy.
Oh.
I put bonus points if the prophecy is either beaten or their interpretation turned out to be wrong and actually nobody died.
You need to read Addie LaRue. Another V.E. Schwab. That one, it's not quite hitting that nail on the head, but it's very similar.
Okay. Don't tell me. I'll read it. I'll read it and let you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that. Like in Percy Jackson, the like prophecy he gets in the beginning, that's like a son of the big three is going to raise Olympus or something like that. But raise can mean like to raise up, or raise is another word for like destroy. So it could mean either way, and things like a double meaning, something like that. Or like the prophecy in Macbeth where the witches are like, they tell him like you're safe as long until the day that Birnam Wood rises up against you. He's like, well, it's a forest. How is a forest gonna move? I'm literally safe forever. But then it turns out that the enemy decides that they're gonna disguise themselves going across the field by cutting down the trees and holding them, so it looks from the castle like Birnam Wood is moving towards him. So it's like, I think it's cool how like a prophecy plays out like that.
100%.
Yeah. After that, the next one I have is multiple POVs or multiple timelines.
I love a good multiple POV. Oh my god.
I love a multiple POV. And there's so many, and there are so many that are done in different ways. And I love when there are multiple POVs, but they're all lying to you. Mm-hmm. Like none of them are really reliable.
When certain POVs are in different timelines of their lives.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I like multiple POVs. Like I just read Birnam Wood. That was my 50th book of the year.
Yay!
Woo! Completed my goals.
Wow.
It's multiple POVs, but one of the POVs is like this really evil mastermind behind everything, ruining everyone's lives. So you see inside his head so like what's going on and how colossally fucked everyone is. But then you're also reading like the other people's perspectives and they have no idea. So it's really cool to see.
That is really cool.
Yeah, so I like multiple POVs. Throne of Glass in its entirety is all multiple POVs, but as the series progresses, there are more POVs added in. So basically, the longer you read, the more information you're being given, nice. Which is kind of cool. And then the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin is also multiple POVs. I love a multiple POV where none of them seem related, and then at some point, they all cross.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
love
that.
The Testament by Margaret Atwood is like that. And I really didn't like that book. And honestly, that was like the first multiple POV book where I had no idea whose POV I was on. Like, it was really hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a big fan of The Handmaid's Tale. So I was not expecting Margaret to let me down like that.
Yeah. The multiple POVs in Throne of Glass and in the 5th season are both like that, where none of the POVs seem related until suddenly they are.
Those are wonderful.
It's so great. And one of the POVs in the 5th season, it's you, because one of the characters is told in second person.
Oh.
So we don't actually meet that character as the reader until she shows up in someone else's perspective.
That is so cool.
So you get to the chapter, and at the top of the chapter it says you. And so like basically that's your perspective.
That's insanely cool.
It's so cool. I love that book so much. It does so many cool things.
I also had a moment where it was like, just like you said, where it's like you're waiting for the perspectives to line up in They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. Because that one is about a university professor that is killing men that she believes have consequences they need to face. And then the alternative POV is a student at that same university. So you spend the first 2/3 of the book waiting for this to line up, because they don't for a really long time, until, spoiler alert, you learn that it's actually also dual timeline, and the student is her. And
oh, I love that. That's really cool.
Because she went by Carly when she was young, and then she went by her full name Scarlett as an adult when she started like owning herself and murdering men. So,
oh wow.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was incredibly written.
Nice.
My jaw dropped. I did not see it coming. And
I love those kinds of twists where there are POVs where you get to know them in their own POV, and then you do actually meet them in someone else's POV, but you don't know it's them.
Ooh, tricky.
And so then like later on you like make that connection.
That's really cool.
Oh shit. I didn't realize that was you. And usually it happens in fantasy when people are like concealing identities for their safety, or because they're in a war or something, or somebody's a spy. It's usually like a device for some kind of plot twist. So I'm a big fan of multiple POV for that, because I feel like it leaves a lot of potential for a lot of really interesting things.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was my 2 cents on multiple POVs. And multiple timelines too. Multiple timelines plays into that as well, I feel
it does, yeah.
The next one I have is Animal Companion. I love a good animal companion, especially in fantasy. But if it's a dragon, like in Throne of Glass, Abraxos. Abraxos is a wyvern. Do you know the difference between a wyvern and a dragon?
Not off the top of my head, but I do know both terms.
Okay. A dragon is 4 legs, 2 wings.
Oh, a wyvern is 2 legs, 2 wings?
Yes.
Got it.
So Abraxos is a wyvern who is basically meant to be slaughtered, but instead fights and kills the wyvern that was supposed to be killing him, and like makes it out alive. And so he's like this badass, basically.
Pretty metal.
Yeah, he's pretty metal. Love him. But then you he escapes, and then you have these scenes where he's just like rolling around in a meadow with the flowers, like sniffing the flowers and having
a golden retriever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, Abraxos is like one of my favorite animal companions ever.
I love that. I love when giant beasts just like act like dogs.
Yeah,
like even horses when they're just like you're scritching them and they're like, oh my god, like favorite thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I do love a good animal companion for that, regardless of the animal. I love a good, like, a witch with a cat.
Classic. Vicious by V.E. Schwab also had an animal companion, and it was a dog, and it was one that came back to life. It died, and then this little girl brought it back to life.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then it
Very
just stayed around. Yeah.
Cool. I love a good cult religious extremist trope.
Don't get me started on cult books.
Usually like the villain's crew is kind of culty, or the characters will be like running from the villain and then find these people who like take them in, and then find out that these people are actually like really harmful.
See, this is why you're gonna love Bunny by Mona Awad.
Yeah, there is that in Orleans by, I want to say, Sherry L. Smith. The main character is like basically fighting to survive and running from these people who are trying to hunt her for her blood.
Because what else would they be hunting her for?
And then she comes to this house with all of these women and this man living there, and they take her in and like feed her and basically nurse her back to health. And then she finds out that she should not be there. It's not good.
I love a good story like that.
Yeah, so I do like the like cult side conflict. I enjoy that personally. Well, if it's done well. If it's done in like a really like trumped up kind of not well researched way, then it's like, okay, then I don't like it so much.
I like when it goes into like the psychological aspects of it.
Yeah. And that has to be done well, I think, to be effective.
It does. But I think that's my favorite part of it, is like where you are mentally with coming across this cult and having them like take you in. And yeah.
So I do like that, just as a little extra intrigue into things. And then I'm just going to completely 180 it. And my next one is Seaside or Small Town Romance. Big fan.
Quaint.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's just comforting. There's something about it. I don't know. I enjoy it. Bonus points if it's a grumpy sunshine on the seaside. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey changed my life. It was so good. That's what really got me into romance in the first place, was that book. Tessa Bailey is another auto-buy author for me.
Nice.
Like everything new that she comes out with, I buy. But yeah, like enough said. Seaside romance, small town romance. It's a classic.
It's quaint. It's cozy. What's not to love?
Yeah, I love a good cozy, especially in a cozy mystery where there's like a romance subplot, which, speaking of, my next trope is the protagonist is a suspect / taking things into their own hands. Usually that's in like cozy mysteries. And my favorite cozy mysteries are the Misfortune mystery series, like I've talked about before, and the Secrets in Scrabble series by Josh Lanyon.
See, I think Finley Donovan by Elle Kazumano fits into that too.
Yeah. Well, no, because she's not widely suspected.
Well, no, but she is taking it into her own hands.
True, yeah.
Even though like, she could have played it off onto Teresa, but whatever.
I would have, personally.
Yeah, it was right there. It was right there. She could have, but whatever.
Yeah, but I mean like taking it into their own hands because they are a suspect, and so now they have to get involved because nobody else is going to advocate for them, so they have to advocate for themselves. And so we end up following this like armchair sleuth on this little mystery. I enjoy that a lot, especially in Secrets in Scrabble. I really, really enjoy that one. They're short, so they're easy to get through. That's about a guy who's failing acting career. Like, he just walks away from his acting career because I think it's his great grandmother passes away, and she lives on this small island in Pirates Cove, and she leaves him her mansion and her bookstore, and so he basically just drops everything, moves to this island.
Well, yeah,
starts running this bookstore, living in this mansion, except the bookstore and the mansion the bookstore and the mansion are both dilapidated, to be clear. Like she did not take care of it. So he shows up and is basically restoring this old house, trying to get this bookstore like out of the red and off the ground. And within the first couple weeks that he's there, someone turns up dead in his bookshop. And since he's new to town, like small town culture, everyone's suspicious of him. And so even the detective, who there's a romance subplot with between him and the detective. I forget the detective's name, but he's kind of crunchy. I don't really like him.
That's a gross word to describe someone with.
So he basically like, okay, the police aren't going to believe me. Everyone suspects me. I have no alibi. I have to get involved. So I like that a lot personally. And then that book specifically also played into the seaside romance thing, which I appreciated.
Cool.
The next the next two I have, both in all caps. One of them is fake dating.
Okay.
In relation to marriage of convenience. Specifically, the my wife moment.
My wife.
Not like that. No. But it's usually in a situation where like people who don't really like each other or they are enemies. Usually this happens in mafia romance where like it's like rival families, and to form an alliance, a son from one family and the daughter of another family have to get married. And like they hate each other, and she thinks that he wants nothing to do with her, and then at some point something's happening to her, or somebody says something rude to her or something like that, and he goes, "Careful how you speak to my wife," or "Where is my wife?"
Oh, that gave me flutters.
Exactly. This is what I'm telling you. So I love that. That's great. Bride by Ali Hazelwood has one of those moments. Love it. That's another
I've
like
heard
marriage of
one.
convenience.
Yeah.
You should read it. I think you'd like it. So yeah, I really love I love a fake dating. Also, I like a marriage of convenience when it's like for inheritance or something. I think Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks has that, because he has to get married in order to get his inheritance or something.
I'm imagining Victor and Victoria from Tim Burton's The Corpse Bride. Again, a film, but
yeah,
marriage of convenience.
I do like a marriage of convenience because it's lies until it's not anymore, but there's a gray area in the middle where they're both not lying anymore, except the other person doesn't know it, and so they're really like unsure. I like that. Angst. The next one I have on my list is multiverse.
Oh,
I love a multiverse. Usually it's like an author will have a number of different series, and then at some point the series cross over.
Oh. Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Sarah J. Maas, we call it the Maasverse.
See, I expect all of Jane Austen's books to be in the same universe, to be honest.
Well, they are, because they're all set in England in that time period.
Okay. But like they never officially cross over, but
Yeah.
I just like to imagine that they're all like within an hour of each other distance-wise.
They probably are.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about like in fantasy, usually where there's literally multiple dimensions, and there are different series following different sets of characters in these different worlds, and then at some point they meet each other and cross over for some reason.
So does Throne of Glass cross over with something else?
Yes, there's the Maasverse. So there's Throne of Glass, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City. Those are the three different series. But they cross over and they don't. It depends.
Have you read all three of these?
I have not yet. So I don't know how they cross over. It's just been spoiled for me because everyone online talks about it constantly.
Fair. They're bad for that.
Yeah. So are you, girl. You just give the whole plot
I do.
of
I just get so
warning.
into it, and then I'm just like, hey, let me like run down the entirety of this book, and then I'll tell you how I feel about all of it as a whole. And yeah, I'm bad for that. That's just like my brain just like organizes information all in like one group, and I have to finish the entire group before I move on.
How neurodivergent of you.
Yeah. Sorry to the editor.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, a multiverse. I love it. And I love like a long haul series. And I like it when things are interconnected, so you get cameos from the characters of other series that you loved and like are now done with, and so you get to see them again.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
that's
it a
cute.
lot.
It's reminding me of Scooby-Doo and how it crosses over with Batman and Supernatural. So many things.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I also just like I guess sort of related to this. It's not a literal multiverse because that doesn't really exist outside fantasy, but I do like in romance when there's a series of interconnected standalones. So like
Oh,
when the main protagonists of each romance novel know each other, and so you get cameos of the couples whose story you've already read, of them just being happy on the side
that's
in
so
the
cute.
next romance
Oh,
novels.
I've never experienced that in a book.
Oh, it's so cool. Like the Cocky Kingman series by Amy Howard that has that where all of there's going to be 8 books in the series because it's one family, the Kingmans,
Hmm.
who have there's 8 brothers. And so each book follows a different brother. So you get each of their love stories, and then in the next brother's love story you see all of the characters. So you spend all 8 books with this family. You're just following a different brother's love story in each one, but you get to
Nice.
see like the future of the couples from the earlier books in the later
Cute.
books. Yeah, I like it a lot. So I guess that's sort of a related thing of like interconnected standalones and like cameos of the other characters. I like those tropes a lot. The last one I have is all caps banter. I just
Oh,
I'm a sucker for some good banter.
we love banter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you
yeah.
couldn't tell about us.
Yeah, from the way that we like to yap.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my whole list of my like favorite tropes from
Wow.
fantasy, romance, some other stuff.
Very comprehensive. Well done. I learned a lot.
Thank you. I made up those explanations on the spot. Had no plans, no notes.
You know what? It's very real that way, I think. Like,
Yeah.
who wants a scripted podcast? If I wanted that, I would watch a movie.
Yeah. Well, I do like podcasts where it's a story because they remind me of like the old time radio shows, like the detective radio shows where
Yeah.
you would listen in the morning and then every day was like a new episode, and they used to have that on the radio
Yes.
like way back in the day. I have a cassette tape actually that I found for 99 cents of like the first 4 or 5 chapters of like an actual old detective radio show. And I also have an app on my phone that has all the old radio shows like from the 50s and 60s on them,
Nice.
which is really fun. My dad put me onto that. I do like podcasts like that, but we are not that.
No, not
We're
at
not
all.
even a little bit that.
Moral
We're
of the
here
story.
to sit. Yeah, we're here to sit and have like tea or coffee, have a snack with you,
Yeah, and just chat.
and just chat and make you feel welcome, make you feel comfortable and safe and excited to read.
Yes, interested in books, interested in writing in books. This is a cozy space.
Yes, indeed. For you to be you and bring your weird, because we're weird too. So
Exactly. So,
works out.
yeah, with that, if you want extra weirdness,
Mm-hmm.
you can find that on Instagram at Badly Annotated Pod, or you can find even more weirdness on Threads at also Badly Annotated Pod. Or you could bring your weirdness to us at badlyannotatedpod@gmail.com. So
Yep.
there we go.
Badly Annotated Pod everywhere
Everywhere.
that you find your stuff. Also, I haven't mentioned it yet, but in the description of every episode at the bottom, there's a little link that says send us a text. If you want to text us.
There is also a contact us on our link tree, and that is another thing that I should mention. We have a link tree in our bio on Instagram that will link you to nearly everywhere that you can listen to us. If, maybe you're just pulling through at this point, but like we're not on your ideal podcast listening platform, we might be. Go check it out.
You just gotta look.
Yeah, but 95% of the links are on that link tree. And yeah, there's also a contact us form on there, and that will just go right to that Gmail. So, yay. Talk to us.
Cool.
We like friends.
We do. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool.
And if not, you'll hear from us. So, regardless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So, on that note, best wishes. We're Mr. Guards.
Sincerely, Jess and Hannah.